Thanks for clicking. My name is Mark Mitchell. I'm a mortgage broker here in London, Ontario. As the Canadian election came to a close last month, Canadians heard a lot about the ending of blind bidding in the real estate industry. And as Trudeau is set to choose his cabinet this month, the CBC commissioned a poll asking Canadians what they thought of blind bidding and if they thought it should be replaced. According to the poll, 52% of respondents wanted it abolished, 23% were happy with the system, and 25% didn't know which way or the other. As many think that ending the system of blind bidding would help make Canadian real estate much more affordable and create a fair and open process, I wanted to go over the system and see if it makes sense for Canadians. So what I want to do is go over how the system of blind bidding works in Canadian real estate, what are some of the major problems associated with blind bidding, go over some alternatives to the blind bidding system and how they work in other countries, and then finish off by going over whether or not this will actually work to make housing more affordable in Canada. Hopefully in the next coming weeks and months we'll have more information as to whether or not the government is actually going to pursue this blind bidding system, and we also have some more information coming out from the Bank of Canada later on this week and next week on the real estate sector throughout Canada, so we'll have some updates out on that. Click like and subscribe to get those updates, but for now let's get into the blind bidding system. So the way that it usually works right now in Canada, if you want to buy or sell a house, is the house goes on MLS for a certain price, and then once you decide that that's the house that you want, you and everybody else that wants that house submits an offer by offer date, and then the sellers of the house choose which offer that they find most appealing. The Real Estate Brokers Act in Ontario makes it illegal for realtors to disclose the dollar amount of competing bids. So nobody knows how much. So when you submit an offer, you don't know what any of the other offers that were submitted are. You don't know how much those are for. So they could be $1,000 more than your offer. They could be $200,000 more than your offer. And we'll see that in a few minutes. So that's the system, the way that blind bidding works right now. Under this system, in most situations, though not all, the highest bid with the lowest amount of conditions is accepted. Sometimes, and there's been news articles about this out, people have written in letters in lieu of a higher offer to try to tell their story, and sometimes those offers have been accepted. But in my experience, and I think most real estate agents will tell you these days, that the highest bids with the lowest amount of conditions, say finance, home inspection, appraisal, their firstborn, etc., those are the offers that get submitted. The biggest problem with the system, though, is that you're not aware of all the other bids that are being submitted along with your offer. Canadians have long had a problem with this, as it does cause many people to way overpay. The CBC mentions a woman by the name of Jenny Park. Apologize to Jenny if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. After being outbid for a number of other properties, Jenny submitted an offer $235,000 over asking price, which was accepted. And then after the offer was accepted, she later found out that hers was the only offer submitted. So she wasn't competing with any other offers, but because of the blind bidding system, Jenny didn't know that. Jenny is trying to appeal this case, but it does show the negative side effects that are inherent in the blind bidding system and why it's left such a bad taste in so many home buyers' mouths. It's great for sellers so far, or it has been, as obviously, wouldn't you like to get $235,000 more than you're asking for your house? But obviously, it's left home buyers quite upset, and it's left them to overbid way more than they would have needed to in order to secure that house. Just in London, Ontario, I've heard of many instances of buyers paying $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 over the second highest bid. So obviously, there's been a lot of calls for this system to be overhauled. Not only does it leave a sour taste in a lot of buyers' mouths, but it's also been said, although this is debatable, to have been a major cause of our affordability crisis. If everybody's blind bidding or overbidding for their house, then obviously that's going to push prices up and up and up, as everybody overpaying will make every house worth more. So it's not only has it been bad for home buyers, but it's also been blamed for a lot of the overbidding in the housing market and the affordability crisis that ensued thereafter. But many advocates of reform look to the Australian model of live auctions rather than blind bidding as a means to reform our blind bidding process. Under the Australian model, what happens is that sellers put their home on their market. Buyers are given all the information, a lot more information than we're given in Canada. And then usually about 3 or 4 weeks later, an auction is held right outside the home seller's home, and the highest bid gets it.
Here's your final opportunity, or I'm going to knock it down to your competition at a bid of 160, 100.
161.
This model obviously has quite a few strengths in that you're well aware of all the bids around you. You're giving much more time to gather the information on the house and to do your walkthrough, get your home inspection, etc., etc., etc. And many feel that it's just a much more open and transparent process. It's also worth noting that in Australia, double ending is outlawed. Real estate agents, even though there's less of them, can't represent the buyer and the seller. It's frowned upon in Canada, but it definitely does happen. Actually, a CBC marketplace investigation from a few years back, link in the description, revealed that 1 in 10 of the homes that they investigated were sold via double ending. Obviously, if the real estate agent is representing the buyer and the seller, there's a big conflict of interest there, but it does happen. In Australia, it's outlawed. So in Australia, you have your live auction. Realtors aren't allowed to double end. They're not allowed to represent the home buyer and the home seller, and home buyers are given much more information well in advance than they are in Canada. The live auction system in Australia, though, isn't without its problems. When the Liberals proposed to ban blind bidding this year, the Ontario Real Estate Association president, David Oikel, again, I'm hoping I'm not mispronouncing that, came out with a statement saying that if we were to introduce a live auction in Canada, it would lead to a 3-ring circus on people's lawns. Obviously, that's a little bit of an overstatement, and being the president of the Real Estate Association, he has a vested interest in having blind bidding continue. Not saying that there shouldn't be reforms, but we do have to consider the source. The Australian system also doesn't prevent bully offers. That's where someone comes in, if the offer date's say in 4 weeks, someone comes in in 2 weeks and offers such a high price that the sellers just take that offer. We have bully offers here in Canada too, but the Australian system doesn't get rid of those bully offers. So that remains a problem. And one of the biggest critique against the Australian system that people tend to lodge is that it hasn't stopped them from creating an affordability crisis. The price of Australian real estate has risen almost 20% this year, so they're having much of the same problems that Canada is having with its blind bidding system. And then finally, critics of the Australian system say that the government has no right to tell homeowners the manner in which they want to sell their homes. And the Real Estate Association actually goes even further and has said that the Australian system could do blind bidding. Australians could, and home sellers there overwhelmingly choose to sell their home via live auction. Obviously, they feel they can get more money from it. That's the critique of the Australian system, but it is definitely an alternative. An emerging alternative, though, as mentioned in this CBC article, again, link in the description, is on the block auction, which is actually an online auction whereby which offer day happens and people can go on and bid much in the same manner in which you would on eBay. So it's thought to be much more transparent. You know what all of the other offers are. You can see the bids come in. People can put in their bid at the last 5 minutes. So it's kind of like a live auction, but you're at home. You're on your computer at your desk sitting with your realtor. But it's thought to be a much better system than the Australian system, where you're out on the lawn and you can allow the hype to kind of get to you and the spirit of the moment. And better than the blind bidding system, where you're not given all the information. Under this system, you're in the comfort of your own home with your real estate agent, armed with all of the information. The system also allows you to increase your offer if more offers come in. Again, just like the eBay system. So you bid $100,000, one comes in for $110,000, you can bid $120,000. It allows you a second kick at the can, or maybe even a third or a fourth kick at the can. Again, this is thought that it would be much more transparent and be better for everybody all around, as more information is considered to be better than less. Which, I mean, coincidentally is what I always say. It's way better to be armed with more information than less, especially when dealing with the biggest purchase of your life. With all of that said, there are two big issues with reforming our blind bidding system. The first one has been mentioned by real estate agents, and has actually even been mentioned by critics of the blind bidding system. They've even said that Canada really has an issue of supply, not necessarily just blind bidding, in making our housing so unaffordable. So it's really, and I've said this in other videos, that supply has been the issue with creating such high real estate prices in Canada. Changing the system won't change the supply. It just won't. So that's one issue. The biggest issue, though, that I find is how can we do this at a federal level? During the campaign, the Liberal Party said they could outlaw blind bidding with a criminal code. And sure, yes, they can. They can make it illegal to do blind bidding. But then what do you replace it with, and what's the transition like? The real estate sector is a provincial issue. So if the government came in and just, boom, banned it with a criminal code, well, the Ontario government, or even the Alberta government, BC, all throughout Canada, I'm in Ontario, so obviously I think of them first, but the governments would need time to change around the system, to implement something else. And what sort of effects are going to come into play as that timeline draws closer and closer? Are the bids going to go way up? Is real estate going to shrink right down as people wait for that deadline? We don't know the effects that could happen if all of the provincial governments everywhere had to change their system because something was now going to become illegal. Not to mention that we currently have a minority government coming in and could be looking at another election in 12 to 18 months, apparently. So it's very difficult to design and then implement a system that might not even be needed in the next 18 months to 2 years from now, especially at a time when our real estate sector is driving so much of our GDP that we really don't want to start messing with it too much when we don't know what the effects are going to be. With all of that said, we do have an affordability crisis in Canada. People, home buyers especially, are growing more and more unhappy with the blind bidding system. So who knows what could happen as they come out, as we see how many of those election promises that Prime Minister Trudeau is going to keep. As we start to see those come out, we'll have more updates on this channel. Thanks for watching. Please do click like and subscribe to get those updates. Episodes. They're not episodes yet, are they? No. To get those updates, and we'll talk to you soon.